Hello everyone, my name is Sundar Vedantam. Thank you all for joining the session today. For those who don't know me, I am in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I run a team that develops software for Axia and Snoridge products that mainly go to Nokia. In this session titled My Biggest Failure, I'll be talking about my experiences in various failures that I've had in the past, as well as the incubation session for the spring 2020 that we went through. I am recording this session. I intend to post it later on. If you have quick questions, you can ask them on this session. If it's easy to answer, I'll do that right at the beginning. If not, if I'm covering it at a little later, we can save it for the end of the session. This is a good turnout. Thank you all for joining. The purpose of doing this session is that in general, in our culture, in today's culture, not necessarily only in US, all over the world, there is a general tendency to curate all our successes, putting ourselves in a very shiny, nice, bright light, whether it's personal or professional endeavors and our activities. But when things don't go right, we generally tend not to talk about it much because that may give us a kind of a loser badge or something like that. But often, as you would all agree, there is a lot of learning to be had in failures also. And as long as we have put in an honest effort, talking about failures is really important. That makes us better for the future for anything else that we intend to do going forward. But it also shares the knowledge with the rest of the organization, team, friends, family, whomever we are talking to. Intel does have this as one of the cultures that we want to change, the fearless attitude that we need to bring in, but it still takes some time. So this is my 2 cents to contribute towards that move. Right. The agenda itself, we'll talk briefly about my past failures, and then the biggest failure and why am I calling it that, and what was the journey, what did we do in the process, what things did we learn, and then we can do Q&A if there is anything that I did not cover or we did not talk about during the session. I'd like to start saying that failures are not new to me, right? And I'm sure this is pretty common, pretty normal for anyone else. So I can go back decades. In grad school, for my graduate thesis, I worked on ATM, asynchronous transfer mode. People like me who have lost enough hair, who have been around for a couple of decades, would remember ATM was touted as one of the biggest technology that's going to be the standard going forward. ATM forum was really big in the late 90s, but it eventually went in the path of the dodo bird, right? It's pretty much not there. So even though my graduate degree work was in that area, I could use that knowledge and then apply it again in the packet network domain and continue successfully. Subsequently, over the last decade, we were in a project for Nortel. We were designing a small and medium business gateway. So as you can see, these are 8 and 12 port devices with Wi-Fi, Ethernet ports, phone, fax, etc. That was all built in. We worked 2-3 years on it. In the end, when it finally went to market, Nortel went bankrupt, and so the whole thing was thrown out, right? Nothing much really happened. I also worked on another project called Lancaster. Many in the call may know about that also. It's a 10 gig card. We were working on it 7-8 years back. The card worked properly. It was designed for Cisco, but towards the end of the project, we would go and present what we are doing, what's the progress, and so forth. And there wasn't a lot of excitement from the Cisco side. Eventually, they just said no to that whole project and then designed their own card. right? So all these are in the past, these have happened. And of course, in each one of these, I was one cog, not the entire project lead or anything like that, but still there were things like that in the past. In the last couple of years, I've been really involved in the Snow launch. Pretty much most of you would know about it. There have been a lot of articles on the circuits. Snow is a SoC device that we are selling to BTS base station customers. And we got a lot of good credit for it. It was widely received very well. So this is Timmy Labat, our vice president, who was with me in Portland, Oregon last year. Then Sandra and Jean, that's Naveen Shanai. We even, with the hardware team's help in Allentown, mocked up a base station looking fake box inside which we put the storage device and then ran the demo. But in each one of these situations, since the device was an A0 stepping device that was very, very shaky, it was a huge risk. And then every time I go to a site, the top one, this is in California, this is in Portland, this is in someplace else, I forgot. Everywhere, I need to call my team and then pull my hair out and then do a lot of debug to get the system up and running, and it will keep crashing, right? And then there were situations where Naveen was actually presenting on the stage. We were all biting our breath to make sure it doesn't crash in front of a large audience and so forth. And it kept happening. And even Sandra was asking me, why does it keep crashing? I had to tell her it's all brand new software and we are trying to do our best. The height of it was in Barcelona last year when we were there to present the Snow as a big launch in the Mobile World Congress. And as we can see, it's Bob Swan. He was talking to the press at this time, and I was standing right behind this. The Snow demo area was in this location. So after this press conference was over, he just walked around the areas and then came to the Snow booth. So I had the demo all ready and then just starting to show him, and then the system crashed again. Bob could not have been more gracious, right? He simply said, it just goes to show that you are doing a real demo on a real device. So no problem, go ahead, reboot it. And so Mike Merluzzi, who was standing next to me, had to jump in and then keep talking to Bob. And bringing up the demo takes 10 minutes, right? By then, Bob was done and he walked away. So that's all. My big chance to show the demo to Bob didn't material amount to much. But the point is, it didn't matter. Whatever we tried, we did. Right from Bob onwards, they were very appreciative of what we were doing, because everyone understood that this is a tough thing to pull off from a A0 stepping device that just came out like a month or two back, right? So my big takeaway was that Intel and the management truly does support failures if people take risk and then try to go do something that doesn't work out that very well, right? And of course, it wouldn't work if you just don't put in the effort and then just keep failing. The point is to put the best effort, take risk, and then if it fails, it's okay. You can go back and try again, right? So on that note, the business idea that we pitched for the Intel incubation program is called Own Your Data. Why am I calling this the biggest? Right? So this picture was taken last year when our team went to Santa Clara to make the actual pitch. So there is literally like a Shark Tank kind of pitch. As the team lead, I am the one who was making the pitch in front of a bunch of selected VCs who had come into venture capitalists who have come in to evaluate various pitches, the VP and the EGI, that's the Emerging Growth Initiative Board. That gives us like a 15-minute time to pitch our case and then 15 minutes of discussion. So this was picture was taken at that time. We tried to color coordinate our clothing and all, right? Um, in this whole venture, I was the lead, and including our team members from Allentown. You can see Bin, Praveen, and Mike Chen standing next to me. There were a total of 8 people. One person couldn't make it for the pitch. And so all of us spent 3 months, actually a lot more than 3 months. The pitch itself was in December. So sometime from the last November to this April, about 6 months of our time doing this. And then in the end, of course, we didn't get the funding to go on to the next stage. And since I was the lead, I should stand up and take the ownership. And that's why I was calling it the biggest failure, because I was leading it and there was not one person's time or anything like that. It's like 8 people working on it for months that it didn't get funded. But is that bad? Not at all, right? That's the whole message that I'm hoping to convey to you all. When I talk to people, I often realize many of our team members didn't even realize there was this incubator program that was going on in Intel. So this is just a quick overview of what the program is about, just a single slide. Late last year, Intel sent out this mail to the entire Intel employee population. So anyone who has an idea to develop a new business for Intel, they were encouraged to come and submit an application saying what will the idea be and why do we think that will be a really huge business opportunity for Intel, right? And from that, a subset of teams were selected. They were invited to come to Santa Clara and then do a pitch. And from the pitch, a further small subset of teams were selected to go into this incubation process. The incubation itself is a 12-week program. So there is a get ready phase where we do the preparatory work. That was last December, January timeframe. And then February, March, April were the 3 months that we were supposed to be in Santa Clara, California, right next to the our main headquarters office. Everyone who's participating in the incubation program were booked rooms in a nearby hotel so that we could walk over in like 5 minutes. So we are physically required to relocate to Santa Clara. And during the first month, we assess the market desirability for our solution, right? Do customers really want it? Then figure out what is the exact solution. I mean, you might have come in with an overall idea and then figure out exactly what the solution is going to be. And then in the last month, assess the business viability, put together the minimum viable product that you intend to come out, what kind of time frame would it take, how many people do you need, what kind of equipment, software, support that you need, and then go pitch it to the EGI board again. And if they think it's a good idea, then you get picked up to be funded, right? So that's the whole idea. And so engineering throughout where it can be fit in. So we need to do build, test, learn, and then fail fast. Meaning if for some reason you came in with a good idea, but it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere, Intel wanted you to close shop and then get out so that we are not wasting time. That's the overall idea. So what did we go in with? Originally, Bin, Praveen, myself, and Mike Chen, the 4 of us submitted an idea. The basic idea was to attach some sort of an expiry date with documents. We can store it in blockchain, encrypt it, so that we can govern the lifespan of documents properly and then purge them out when it's done. This is an idea I submitted to the Intel patent committee a couple of years back as an invention disclosure. I thought it was a good one and so was hoping to get a patent on it for myself and Intel. Unfortunately, the disclosure got rejected by the review committee at that time. But when the announcement for the incubation came out, since I had this failed patent idea at the back of my mind, I could quickly see how that can be turned into a business idea. So my team members worked with me to polish the idea further. We even put together a proof of concept website and submitted the whole thing to EGI as our venture idea. If I had not had that failed patent application in the back of my mind, perhaps I may not have come up with an incubation idea that quickly. Now we refile the patent and it's going to be approved for filing under these new circumstances, since there is a better context as to how that could be useful for Intel. So what was once a failed patent idea became our incubation idea, and now potentially a successful patent for Intel as well. So as the New York State Lottery tagline goes, you have to be in it to win it. If you're not in it, you certainly can't win it either. And then there were two other teams that also came in with some sort of a data privacy related area kind of submission. So EGI, noting that the three teams have kind of an overlapping idea, they asked us if we all can work together as a single team. So we held multiple rounds of discussions, figured we could. And just to make sure that we can work together, there is a requirement that you need to tell EGI who's going to be the CEO of this venture, who's going to be the CTO, who's going to be the program manager, and so forth. So we were able to discuss and come to these conclusions. So taking the CEO role, I was responsible for all the pitches, all the discussion, guiding the team through the whole process. Chandra, he's in Santa Clara office itself, and he and this Jerome, who's in our Bangalore office, together they had submitted one idea. And Atul and Srini, Srini is actually in Vietnam and Atul is in India. These two had submitted another idea. So we combined all our ideas to form one proposal, went in. So what was the idea itself? In what does Own Your Data do? Our pitch is to say that we want to end data mismanagement in the enterprise. Right? As we all know, there is a lot of data lingering around, then it's probably often not handled and managed well. And since the problem itself is a massive one, we thought we need to approach it with a multi-pronged solution. So the first big shield that we were proposing was the rightful data ownership. So we came up with an idea called data DNA that will individually identify pieces of data, so that can ensure that there is correct accountability, the permission, the intelligent contracts that will allow only the rightful owner to give access to the data to the rightful consumer on the other end. Then the second shield is data governance, meaning throughout its lifespan, we'll make sure that the data is not in the wrong hands, it's not lingering around beyond its specified lifespan. The integrity of the data is maintained, and we also trace it so that we know who's using the data, who has it during what time, and so forth. And then the last aspect was accessibility. So we also thought when data is out there, it's often 0 or 1, meaning it just handed over completely. And so the consumer side, when I say consumer here, I still mean the corporate consumer, right? So the receiving side gets the whole data. So instead of that, we were trying to bring in notions like zero knowledge proof, which is a mathematical idea to prove to the other side that you know something, you have some information without really revealing what it is, right? So there are statistical models to show that it can be done. With that, we were hoping to limit the access of data to the rightful level, to the rightful user on the other side. So with these three things put together, our pitch was that it will clean up most of the data mismanagement that goes on in the whole world, right? And this is our just couple of slides to show, just one slide to show the architecture and another one to show about our market analysis. So this slide shows how things work today. So there is always a data producer owner, and then there is a consumer. Since Intel is keen on doing B2B business exploration and not necessarily B2C, here the data consumer is still a company, right? So you can think of this as, let's say there is a Gartner that is doing analysis of all the banks in Pennsylvania. And then the data consumer could be Citibank that wants to know, should they open one more branch in Allentown, right? So they'd be interested in the report that Gartner might have produced. And so they want to get that. So right now they just access and then they get it, and then they can keep it for as long as they want. They can email it to whomever else, and let's say Wells Fargo wants it, they may be able to hand it over without Gartner's consent. So we wanted to break that model and bring in OYD, own your data, as another layer of protection that will work with the existing IT infrastructure that companies are already using. So it will be seamless integration, very low overhead integration, but it will ensure that when there is a new data, let's say this new report is produced, the Gartner gives us access to that data and then tells us exactly this is that one unit, this is how we want it to be governed, right? And then the OID will generate a unique data ID and then give it back to the producer owner. So they know using this handle, this particular ID, they can specifically address or manage that particular piece of data. So that it could be one report, it could be one file, it could be an image, it could be a huge database, it could be anything, or it could be part of a record, right? And the producer owner will then tell OID who is the consumer. So in this case, let's say Citibank can read this data and use it during the months of May and June, right? We would encode that in iContract, that's intelligent contract, that will make sure that only that consumer is allowed to access that information. And we would put that in a OID blockchain network. That is to ensure that the entries become immutable. People can't randomly change it. So when the consumer wants to access the data, they make a request, it comes to us, and then we would go and check the iContract to make sure that Citibank is indeed allowed to access this data. Then we'll get the encryption keys, decrypt it, and then send it back to the consumer. And at some point, let's say Wells Fargo wants to look at that same report, they won't be able to get it right from this consumer, but they need to create a new permission request that Gartner would be able to either grant or deny. And we were not trying to just cobble together existing solution. We were trying to file a bunch of patents on various areas so that it'll be a different solution from what's already available. So this is our moat, so that a new business coming in cannot come in and take away our business quickly enough. Right? As part of the original pitch, you are also required to do market analysis to show what kind of what is the size of the market. One of the incubation requirement is that what you are trying to do should have a line of sight for $1 billion market opportunity. This is to make sure it will be a large enough opportunity that Intel will be interested in investing and then hanging around waiting for it to really blossom, right? We don't want to do a $10-20 million opportunity, which may be good for a small startup, but not big enough for Intel. So we went in and then did a lot of analysis trying to figure out what is the total TAM. And we found that there is like $130+ billion privacy and security market. But within that, we were really focusing on this data security, IAM, identity access management kind of area. That's about a $16 billion service accessible market. And within that, we figured maybe about 8%, which is the service obtainable market. That will be about 1.3 billion. So we thought we still have a huge market opportunity. Right? And within that, we had to define a LAM, launch addressable market, meaning when you really push your first product out, how much can you actually pick up? So that's part of the incubation activity, and then that's what will define what will be the MVP, minimum viable product consideration, right? How does the process itself work? It has, again, multiple segments. So in the initial part, As you can see, what we were proposing is related to data privacy security that can be applicable to multiple domains. So we had to look at what area is it really worth digging into. So we looked at healthcare, finance, supply chain management, federal government, and so on. And after that, I mean, we are using like tons and tons of post-it notes, right? So I had like a bunch of pictures. Uh, so things like that. We need to really figure out, okay, what are all the opportunities? Where do you think there are pains, and why do you think people would want to buy this solution, right? And after we do that, then we really start doing pain point interviews with various interviewees that we recruit. So for doing this kind of work, we were allocated a $50,000 budget that we can spend to actually recruit people who would talk to us. So depending upon what is it that you want to talk about, some interviewees may be really cheap to obtain. So for example, there was one team that was talking to video game players. So anybody who's playing video game might be a candidate. So you can just pay them $50 and they'd be willing to talk to you for an hour. But if you're really looking for somebody high up at the CEO level, maybe you need to pay $500 for them to talk to you for an hour, right? And there were companies set up who would, once you give them a profile of who's it that you are looking for, they'll go recruit people, and then you can pick and choose who do you want to talk to, looking at their LinkedIn profile and so forth. So in the pain points, we narrowed it down to data tracking, lineage, ownership, accessibility, all these kinds of areas. Then we actually interviewed about 40-50 people. Each one is like an hour-long interview, right? Trying to get their input as to whether what we are talking about is that a real pain point? Is the customer really interested in finding a solution for it, and so forth. And once we get to that point, then we go back to doing these kinds of analysis, trying to see what is the pain, what is the insight, and then cluster them together in different areas to figure out what is the exact solution that we want to develop. And once we get there, we were supposed to put together what are called storyboards. So these are simple 4-set slides that we had to create for each use case. So here I'm just showing one example. So there is a lady Joan, oh actually not this one, I want to show. Yeah, this one. There is Jane, who belongs to some XYZ company, and she belongs to the HR department. She's looking to get a medical insurance quote. So there is like a big insurance company out there, and Joe is the one with whom she has to interact to get this quote. So she's afraid that when she's giving the HR data, that other company gets too much information from her side, right? And she's very hesitant to give that information. So our solution, without getting into any detail, is to say we would develop a secure data access system where Jane can provide that information, Joe can query the system, and he would get only the allowed amount of information. So for example, instead of getting individual social security number or individual people's age, he can get like mean age or median age, things like that, whatever he needs to develop the solution, right? And at the end, he provides a quote and Jane is happy. So this is just the format is clearly given to us, meaning set up the story and then explain what the issue is, and then provide a high level solution of what is it that you intend to do, and then show that what issue is actually resolved. So this is one story, right? So we developed about 20 different stories like this, and then put together multiple storyboards of this kind. And it's we are not supposed to do just bullets. You need to draw figures, but you should not use colors. For example, if you put somebody with a red shirt, an interviewee looking at it might subconsciously think I'll never wear a red shirt, so that's not me, right? So you are asked to make it as simple, but use some kind of stick figure, right? So because figures being there helps you think through the process rather than just describing it verbally. So we were doing that, and once that is done, we again go back and then put together a combination of storyboards. So three different storyboards each, and then we did multiple interviews. So you can see A, B, C is three storyboards, and so we had like so many of these storyboards put together, and then we spoke to multiple people to figure out if that will actually work through. And after we did all that, then finally we came back to healthcare. Originally, we started with healthcare. We spoke to a lot of doctors and nurses trying to figure out how we can help. And then we quickly realized they all use electronic medical records, but they don't really have a clear idea of how better or how different a solution could be, right? So all they could tell us was, oh, instead of this click, if you can make it that one click, that would be better, kind of thing. So when we realized it's not going anywhere, we had to make a pivot, right? So that was also an important thing that you are taught. So don't get emotionally attached to an idea and spend way too much time. If it's not working, again, fail fast, move on to another domain. So we went to finance. Again, that didn't work out. Then we came back and then looked at privacy and security officers in multiple domains, and then we started seeing the resonance of the ideas that we were pitching in. And at that point, then we could figure out that there is a lot of money in healthcare. Things are still not being handled very well. And so if we develop the solution that will be useful to privacy and security officers in healthcare, that would be the best area to get in, to get the idea going, right? So we defined OID this way. It's a digital data fingerprinting and tracking solution designed to aid data governance. It helps owner maintain control of the data, so you can still see the original ideas being reflected here. And why are we doing this? That's because talking to a lot of hospitals, we came to know that there's an urgent need for ensuring the digital data ownership and tracking uh, working well across organization. So right now you may be familiar that if you are in a system within that one hospital, things may be working okay, but if you need to transfer something from hospital A to B, things don't work that very well, right? And there are a lot of reasons the EMR companies don't really want things to interwork because they think their market opportunity would be taken away. And so instead of trying to say we would develop a totally new electronic medical record, which is a huge lift, right? We went with uh, this particular approach of backward and forward lineage. So there are these two notions, one called provenance, meaning where did a piece of data originate, and lineage, meaning how did it traverse through the system to reach wherever it is and where else it might go moving forward, right? So for example, there is a hospital, and from there some information goes to clinic and hospital 2, then lab, and then comes to hospital A, and here is where somebody notices a data entry in the system for a patient is incorrect. Let's say some blood pressure is entered as 1200 by 800 instead of 120 by 80, right? So they want to know where did the error occur. So they wanted to be able to go back and track the lineage to figure out where did the error occur. And then from here, it may also go forward. It may go to an analytics company, to insurance claims, and so forth. And we are trying to simplify this in a very linear looking flow, but you can often see this clinic B would probably sending something to clinic 1 and so forth. So this gets really, really complicated, right? And we also realize that the large hospital systems that are out there, often they are a hodgepodge of networks. So it's not, even though there is a lot of money sloshing around in healthcare, the IT systems are not very neatly designed. It's not one cloud system that holds everything. It's like different kinds of network, different EMR system, different lab system. They all send different formatted kind of information going back and forth. So we came up with this idea of OID working more like a control plane and then keeping track of the data flowing through the system. So there could be like multiple data sources. So it could be a hospital, it could be a clinic, it could even be an IoT device, or maybe even like Apple or Samsung phone sending your exercise data kind of thing into the system. And there are companies slowly trying to put together these individual health records. When I say companies, mean the hospital systems. So that will have personal detail, care providers, health events, etc., etc. And then that get handled by various physicians, care providers, etc., to provide additional care. We didn't want to spook the hospitals or the healthcare system, so we wanted to let their existing system stay as is. So these are hospitals sending data to this individual health record database, and then they are used by physicians, care providers, and analytics companies, and so forth. So we let these things flow exactly as they are, but as things flow through, we will use the data DNA idea to tag individual data that we'll keep track of. So in the back end, we would know which data was sent where, and then we'll maintain that tracking ability. So at any point, if something doesn't look right, OID can be queried and we can answer what happened and why the error came up at which location, right? So in order to do that, then we are required to put together what's called a prototype. So here, this is not an actual solution, but again, another round of interview. So we go and talk to people saying, this is the ecosystem that we want to work with. So there is a data custodian, and these are all the different entities pumping data into the system. And so when they do that, you would have an interface. I mean, we did explain that most of this work will get done by backend scripts and code running. But if when needed, there will be a web interface. So this will also help people visualize the privacy and security officer what can be done. So we showed that this is how things will be, and then we can go here and then mark what is it that you want to track. Then we would be able to track it for you and then show this is the case, this is the actual signature of that particular data, and if it was like invalid access attempt or the provenance request, whenever whatever happened, we can provide all that data details to you, right? And this is just to show that how complex a system interface can get. So things can start from here, come here, and then go back and then keep looping around. There were a lot of work that went into figuring out how to present what is it that we are proposing. So after some discussion, we thought, hey, we should just show this part alone zoomed out so that people understand what is it that we are trying to pitch, right? So even here, there were a lot of very interesting things that we learned while we are putting this together. The range of things that you end up learning is pretty intriguing and interesting. Since Intel is a big company, they didn't want any like, for example, a photo that you pick from the web, right? If it's used in the prototype, there may be a copyright violation. So we were told anything that you take, you can put it in a software, convert that into pencil drawings, right? Once you do that, then the copyright violation goes away. I didn't know that before, right? And some of you may have heard, I might have told you, pestered you about a book I published just a couple of months back called Thought Experiments. This is just nothing to do with incubation, totally independent kind of work. Just I was doing for fun as a charity work. All the money goes to charity. In that one, I was trying to use figures like, let's say, Albert Einstein. I wanted to get the rightful permission, so I have the copyright to use it. But it's really hard to go figure out who owns this picture of Einstein. And I was spending a lot of time trying to do that. But going through the incubation, I suddenly realized, there is a software, then you can convert all these drawings into pencil sketches. I did that and put that in, and I'm no longer in copyright violation, right? So that was a cute and interesting thing that I learned in the process. So there were a lot of such learning that came across that we came across, and then we did talk to actual hospitals and healthcare companies. So there is one called Medtronic. The CEO of Medtronic is actually the board chairman for Intel. And so I don't know if you all noticed a few weeks back, there was a circuit article saying the Medtronic chairman called our CEO because Medtronic wanted to start producing a lot of ventilators for the COVID-19 situation. They were struggling technically, and then there was an initiative from Intel side to help them along. So that's the company. It's a huge medical devices company. Then there is another one called UHG, United Health Group, that has hospitals, insurance companies, and so forth. And within that, there is a division called Optum, OPTUM, which is the technology division of UHG. So we spoke to them. They all loved our idea, then said they'd be willing to do trial runs and like pilots with us once we develop the software. And of course, in the process, we ended up talking to like army generals and bankers and healthcare and doctors and privacy people, etc., etc., etc. And in the end, this is kind of the solution that we came up with, right? So there could be a nurse who's updating something in an offline situation in a tablet. When the nurse comes to the hospital, the data gets uploaded into the Hospital One database, and the OID data DNA will pick up that information and then write down the tracking information on blockchain. Then it can actually go through. So we learned about these details like HL7 to X, etc. Those are the standards in healthcare to transfer medical records from one system to another. And then it goes to hospital 2, then there is a EHR database, and then it goes on and on. And at any point, if you want to go and track and see what happened where, then we even put together a POC explaining how the system would work and what is it that you can see. Right? So we did all that, and this is just to show how many interviews we did roughly. So it actually goes beyond that. So it shows 88. So we did close to about 100 interviews, talking to so many people to distill our idea. And overall, it was a roller coaster ride in the sense it was pretty intense. So we were in that hotel, which was right next to the to the the area where Intel had put together this whole on-site location. So the days will start from 8 a.m. We'll work till like 6 p.m. and then just go to the hotel. And we were all individual people. Our families were not there, so we still have to go out and eat somewhere. And so we'll continue discussing the same stuff until we go to bed at like whatever 10, 11, and then continue next day, right? And since it's in San Francisco area, there were a lot of conferences. Went to some RSA security conference. This is a gentleman who was running another venture team. His name is Femi. They came up with a notion called AI for dummies. So they put out a video camera. The video camera won't put out any video, but you can query the attached system asking any kind of question. So it could be used for, let's say, in a restaurant or an event planning, like in a conference room or anything. If you ask how many people are wearing red jacket or how many people stood next to this buffet table for more than 5 minutes, then it can do analysis and give you answers, right? So without violating any privacy information, without revealing any actual personal detail, it can answer a lot of questions for you. So their pitch was that can be used in better planning any space utilization. It could be in the street, it could be in a conference hall, it could be in a restaurant, wherever you want to. So they are one of the couple of teams that actually got funded. And another team actually had an idea to automate American Sign Language. So you go and sign in front of a camera, and then it will convert that into English text and forward it to you, and vice versa. You can type something and there will be a cartoon kind of character that can do the American Sign Language for you. So that's another team that got funded. Every Thursday we used to have like a pitch day with like wine and beer served. The organization was really trying to give us the experience of a startup culture. So there'll be about 50 people, since there were about 8 teams. We'll all be sitting around, and then each team has to, the main person has to come and do a pitch of the idea in 5 minutes, and then people will give you feedback as to what was right, what was wrong. Somebody will say, oh, you didn't talk about what's your go-to-market strategy, right? Or you didn't talk about your competition, etc. So week after week after week, you can see the team's ideas getting more and more polished. So of course, we'll go out and try to do something, it will totally collapse, and so there'll be like a total disappointment, frustration. And another day, something simple will happen that will really like cheer us up. So this is one such example. This gentleman is a Stanford business professor. He was invited to be part of the evaluation committee that selected the ventures that will go into incubation. He really loved our idea of the document expiry date, all that, the OID notion. So he all the way just came in just to talk to us. He gave a talk to the whole team, and then he came and spoke to us in detail. So that was really cheering us up. And similarly, this is a gentleman who is in Santa Clara. He's a senior fellow, right? He is a data scientist. And so people like that, when we knock their doors to either get some consultancy, pitch our idea, talk to them, they were all very curious. So instead of, and he said he can talk to us for half an hour, and then we ended up chatting for 1.5 hours in the Santa Clara cafeteria, right? So things like that. I think you spoke to people in Massachusetts, in Santa Clara, people all over the world, and I think my LinkedIn connections went up by about 100 in the last couple of months. So just had like few quick pictures that I took just to show how that whole thing was put together. So they actually constructed this whole office space. Since there were 8 teams, there were 8 office spaces created like this, and so we were all in these office spaces. It's more like a conference room, and every day we were having like scrum meetings, right? Morning 8 o'clock get together to figure out what are the things that we are going to do today, and then evening figure out did we do all of them or not. If not, why not, right? And periodically, as we do interviews, as we come up with ideas, we'll write things down. Then we'll go through a process of synthesis where there were external consultants who were brought in. They'll help us basically merge the ideas together to make sure it matches our hypothesis, and then distill it down to exactly what is it that we want to do. So individual points, we can cluster them together and then put that into some simple things that we can do in the end. And everywhere we need to keep things like, okay, what's the market, what's the technology, what is it that we are going to do. We'll come to that kill criteria in a minute. So this is the hotel that we were right there. Every now and then we did go out and hang out with the people also. Quickly go to, and we also got to know individual family members that were there, and then there were like all kinds of snacks, and they was always pointing out this last one that's sitting here. This is a bottle of Tylenol and ibuprofen. So even if you get sick, medicine was right there for you to pop a pill and then go back to work, right? So that was amusing and weird. And these are the pitch meeting where we had to stand up and talk in front of others, explaining what your idea is. There were a lot of, I visited some of the team members' families, got to know them. There were dinners arranged every now and then, and so on and so forth. And each one of the team also got coaches, so who will work with you routinely to help you synthesize the information, and so forth. And in the end, there was this venture kill criteria that was actually printed and put in each one of our cubicles in our conference room offices. So that you have to meet these three criteria, right? So every day when you work on it, you need to remember these 3 points. First one, it has to be $1 billion business opportunity, not a small one that's lingering around. And then second one, there should be a clear white space that you can go and win with some sort of a differentiated technology that others don't have in the field, right? And then the third one is it should be a technology-driven differentiation that Intel will be interested in. By this, it just means that, for example, you cannot go and say, I'm going to start a new restaurant, right? So that's of no interest to Intel. So in the end, we did not succeed. We were not one of the 3 teams that were picked, mainly because the EGI did not see a $1 billion market in the next 5-year kind of horizon, right? Um, if you look at the overall process itself, last year in the October kind of time frame, there were about 560 submissions that came in, from which there were 21 teams that were selected to actually go do the pitches. We were one of those 21s. And from that, 8 teams were selected to go into incubation, and 8 teams had 8 different ideas. One team was trying to build robots that can be given to lease to small businesses. One was trying to do this AI for dummies. One was trying to cut down the latency in video gaming, and so on and so forth. One was trying to identify fake videos, etc. And in the end, there were 3 teams that got funded. One is that American Sign Language, one is that AI for dummies, and the third one is improving code generation in a much more optimal way. And those are the 3 teams that are going ahead to the next stage, right? So if you look at it as a 1 or 0, we did all this. 8 of us spent months trying to do this. In the end, we did not get funded. So technically, it's a failure, but I would definitely encourage all our team members to go try it out. Why? Because number one, we complain about not getting any say in what Intel does, right? And this is actually an opportunity where Intel is coming and asking you for any idea that you may have that can guide the future of Intel. So this is an excellent opportunity to try your hand. And of course, it's done in a very safe way where your salary and all that is guaranteed, and you don't have to go and really beg venture capitalists for funding. There is a support team that really helps you through the process, and so it's much safer to do it than you going and starting your own company, right? And then learning to deal with ambiguity, right? So I cannot emphasize this enough. In general, we work on a particular product, a particular delivery that we need to make, and at that point, a lot of things may be set, whereas here, what you want to do is like totally ambiguous. And I was telling you this whole story in detail because you can see how many different areas that we went and explored, spoke to, tried to figure out what is it that we should be doing. I think that will probably one learning that will stay with me for the rest of my life, right? And then by definition, the people who are coming in and trying to do this are very creative, driven, self-motivated people who have a lot of energy, right? Otherwise, they won't be there in the incubation process itself. So get to network with a ton of those people that may help us in the long run in multiple ways. And I was defining the whole process as equivalent to doing an MBA in 6 months because we actually had help in like putting together an actual website, right? So you can still go and check this out. So this was more like a small business card. It doesn't have a lot of detail. It's like ownyourdatatech.com that describes our venture. So when you're talking to people, if you don't want to reveal you are part of Intel, you don't have to. So we had an email address sundar@ownyourdatatech.com, right? So you can use that without revealing you are part of Intel at all. But if you think there is an advantage in revealing your Intel, you are welcome to do that as well. So we did that, and then we developed this logo and how should this look like, and things like how do you manage that 50K money that was given to you, what software you want to buy, who do you want to interview, how do you put together a business plan, how do you do TAM analysis, right? And then how do you develop a 30-second pitch for your venture, and how do you do a 5-minute pitch in which you can explain what you are trying to do. All that was part of the whole journey and process, right? And of course, you get the startup experience in the valley safely with a lot of support. Meaning that if you're going and pitching the idea to a VC, until they really fund you, they don't really care about you. Whereas EGI has a built-in innate need to see these ventures succeed. If everybody who goes in don't succeed, then EGI itself doesn't have much value. So there's a lot of support system that is put in place to help us thrive, right? So you get to be there physically, and of course, in our case, because of the corona thing, we were shut down after a month, and we were asked to go back to our home bases and continue the project remotely, which we did. But that did affect us really badly because our team was spread all over the world. And as a team lead, I thought we would be at a point where I can divvy up the work that people can do the Scrum meeting and then continue working on their own time zone. It did not work out that way at all because the size and the magnitude of the problem that we were trying to solve required a lot of discussion. And so beyond 3-4 hours continuing to do that on conference calls, that too at odd hours, didn't really work out, right? So I think that's one big reason why we couldn't get funded in the end. But it's all not for naught. So in the end, the EGI division also came up with this neat idea that wasn't in the original planning. There's a company called Acclaim. So through that, companies like Intel, IBM, they all participate in this program, where if you go and do something extraordinary, where you really went out on a dotted assignment, spent months on trying to build a new business, you are given this digital badge called Innovation Master. So all the venture participants got this badge, and this is visible outside Intel, and you are encouraged to put it on your LinkedIn profile or your email signature or anything else that you want. So that will stay with you for the rest of your life, right? So the overall the program is intense. I actually lost a bunch of hair and a bunch of weight, a lot, about 6 pounds. But once I'm back to normal, then the weight is all coming back, though the hair is not. But it was a very interesting experience, and it's not only good for us. There's a idea that, let's say there are 10 departments within Intel, and there are 10 business opportunities where trying to do it would take $2 million. And if it fails, it fails, 50-50 chance. And then if it succeeds, maybe it will make $10 million in the end, right? And if you are going to be ending up with a $2 million loss, with a 50-50 chance, you may be very hesitant to take it up. But if all 10 divisions do take it up, in the end, 5 may fail, that's $10 million loss, but 5 may win, that's $50 million revenue or profit coming in. So in the end, a lot of people trying different things with full energy and enthusiasm makes good sense for Intel also. So I'm really glad Intel is doing it, and since we all participated, there'll be the next round invitations coming out for the spring 2021 pretty soon. And if anyone has ideas, and if we can talk about it, and if I can provide any input, guidance, anything, I'd be more than happy to.